Namaste to one and all present here. Good morning, and thank you so much for being here for my talk. So, what happened 2 months back was that the organizers here called me and they said, Preet, we want to invite you to give a TED talk. And I'm like, are you sure? Because Preet Jain is a very common name if you just Google it. And I'm like, maybe you're mistaken, but no. They persuaded me that, we want you to be a speaker and we want you to come and talk about your experience. But now what happened was, I said yes, but I was left wondering for a couple of days, what should I talk about? So now, being an author, right, and a researcher, the instinct inside me was, see, Preet, you've never been to a TED Talk before. Let's just quickly go, look at all the TED Talks, the good ones, and let's see if we can learn anything there, right? But then after that, I did not get anything. And it's very important for me to have a perspective, to have a vision with depth that I can deliver to you so that even you can resonate with it. And so just for the vibes of it, I went to Versova Beach for a morning walk. I drove down Marine Drive and Sea Link, and I thought maybe, let's get some inspiration from the sea waves or something. But to no effect there. And ultimately, what did I do? What all of us end up doing is scroll through Instagram. And to a point, I did not know, was Instagram using me or was I using it? But then, luckily, this one time, a profound realization came to me that, we often see those reels, right, giving us inspirational quotes, motivation, or just random quotes. You read it and you feel like, let's empathize with this. It's nothing but paraphrased versions of some core ideas. And see, I come from a very typical Marwadi family. I'm very much attached to my roots. So then when I actually thought about this, I realized that, okay, this is something that has already been taught to me. My dadi or, my parents, they've taught this to me already. So why not look to the people around you, for motivation or maybe for some advice? And why go to these social networking platforms who are just using your time and monetizing it? So then, see, I'm no expert, but one thing I do know is that when you don't know a person personally, right, you see celebrities, you see influencers, but you do not know them personally. You believe, okay, this person is living their life like this. Maybe I should also do the same. But do you know that person in and out? Do you know him 100%? No, you don't. Because they might show you something and there might be something in otherwise. So I believe that the people who are closely associated with you, whom you transact on a daily basis, maybe your friends, parents, mentors, teachers, anybody that could be your relatives, you should actually look to these people because every one of us has some trait that we're really good at. All of us epitomize a particular trait. We may have all the requisite traits, we may not have, that's okay, but everyone will have that one trait. And what you can do is learn that particular thing from that person and help yourself become a better person. But now you'll say that, Preet, you're telling us, compare us with someone else. I'm not asking you to compare yourself. Understand this, comparison should come with cognizance. If I'm comparing myself to, say, my professor, who is like 50 plus, I definitely cannot reach her level at this age, but at least I can come to a particular point, putting in effort and imbibing something from her. So the comparison that you make with someone should come with cognizance. And I was very lucky that in my life, I had two people, my dadi and one of my professors, and I've really learned something from these people. So my dadi, so this is a pre-pandemic story again in 2018. She got initiated as a Jain sadhvi into the holy order, like she renounced the world. And those of you who know about Jain Diksha will know it's very difficult to follow. There's long hours of prayers, recitation. You have to go to houses to get your food, water. You have to travel from village to village barefoot. So it's not an easy life. And I lived with my dadi for 15 to 16 years. Like we lived together. And now suddenly she transitioned to this life, which was completely devoid of modern amenities, gadgets, devices, and everything. And in fact, the head Sadhviji of the group, right, who was above 70, I feel, she did not use her age as an excuse to let her disciples go and do the work. So what do I learn from this? And what can any of us learn from this? Let's look at them as individuals. These individuals are doing something that will help them achieve their goal or a purpose or an ultimate objective. And what are they doing? They're putting in a lot of effort into achieving that objective. So now you'll say that, okay, Preet, this is again an example of people who are into religious practice. And a priest can, practice what they preach. But let me give you a householder's example. So my professor, again, she taught me in secondary school and high school. This was around 5 years back. And I did learn a lot from her for like 4 to 5 years till my board exams. And what used to happen was that she focused on extensive paper writing. Now, all of us know we write assignments, we write a lot of notes, and we submit it. Maybe it's corrected properly, it's not. But that feedback that you get from it is very essential because that will help you to become someone better after all. And ma'am, and between my prelims and my board exams, which is a duration of 3 months, I wrote around 35 full papers, those 80 marker papers that we had back then. And she took the effort to correct each and every one of that paper, write detailed feedback and give it back to me. And let's note this, I was not the only student. She had 10 to 15 students more, and all of us can do the math. And this is just for 3 months. But what I'm trying to show here is, again, she was above 50, and that passion and dedication towards her work ethic, you could literally see papers stack up like towering pillars in her house. So that work ethic that she displayed was commendable. And I thought, Preet, if she's above 50, or if my dadi was above 60, and if they can work this hard, and at that time I was 15 or 16, why can I not work hard towards achieving my goals or objectives? That thought crossed my mind. And one thing, if you notice, that is common in both of these individuals is that they manage their time effectively. Now, my talk is not on time management, but let's know when do we manage our time effectively is when we don't overthink, when we don't ponder too much, when we do not do too much analysis, which will lead to paralysis. So we just do a simple evaluation and you go for it. You just do it. And note this phrase, you just do it. You are being at it, right? Now, you will say that, yes, Preet, when we are starting something or, when we're getting to a work, we will have hindrances, obstacles, challenges that will demotivate you. And for a person who reached to the just do it stage with a lot of difficulty, it's very easy to get swayed away or, compromise on the quality of your work or maybe just leave it, abandon it altogether. So then what do you do? So I've given you just do it and you add just be at it or just be into it. I don't know how many of you know about the concept of meraki. It's a Greek word which means you do something with a lot of passion, a lot of determination. You pour your heart and soul into the work that you're doing. So again, being at it means consistency. It's that go-getter attitude that comes. But again, the question comes. It's easy to say, be consistent. How do we be consistent? Now, there are 3 cornerstones to this. Number 1 is focus. Focus comes when you have clarity. When you have conceptual clarity, your mental direction is clear. And that comes when you make a plan, a particular blueprint or a strategy, that this is how I want to proceed. So when I was writing my book, I made a plan, I made a beautiful outline that, these are the chapters and this is how I want it to be. And according to me, that was the perfect plan that could ever exist. But when I gave it to my co-authors, they told me, Preet, don't you think it is important that you consider our point of view also in the plan? Because we are also equal stakeholders in this book. And I'm like, okay, if you feel, make changes. And once they put in their inputs and I got the revised outline, it was much better. And it was able to cater to a wider audience of students that I wanted to. So again, when you plan, that leads you to focus, you need to have a perspective. And that perspective, that viewpoint, it limits the boundaries. So this is what I have to function in, and this is the alternative ways that I can choose. So that is number 1, focus. Number 2 is self-belief and motivation. Now, self-belief is difficult, but you can develop it by having conviction in your own perspective. And how do you do that? So when I was writing my book, my parents did not believe in me that, he's actually writing a book. And they were like, he might be doing some project or something. So let's let him do it. They never took me seriously, at least like for 1 month. So in that time, when I have to sit and write a book, and all of us do this, let's admit it, we get up and the first thing we do is check Instagram every morning. And when we do that, you see your friends vacationing in Europe, someone's in Singapore, someone's going to a wildlife safari in Rajasthan. You really feel, why? It's even my vacation, right? Even I can go somewhere. Why am I sitting here spending 12 hours a day and doing this research and writing a book, editing, proofreading, and doing all of this? But again, that conviction in my perspective that, no, Preet, we have the time, let's do it. It's a good project. Let's, be at it. That conviction in my perspective led me to start. See, people, when you move ahead in your journey, there'll be a lot of people who will start believing in you. But that initial start point is very important because coming to the start point and getting that, yes, you have to go here, or that particular direction, that's very difficult. And when you get that, which comes from self-belief and motivation, is when you can actually materialize your perspective into something tangible. But again, now when I'm doing this, can I write a book for my lifetime? I can, right? I can have multiple editions of it. I can write a 1,000 pages book, a biography. But what will happen? It'll be too late. Once it's published, I cannot learn anything from it. I will not have the feeling of content or the feeling of satisfaction from it. And I will not be able to reap the benefits or learning, which was the most important part of that entire process. So it's very important that you know, where do I draw the line and where do I stop? So summarizing all of this, I told you about just do it, and I told you about just be at it. Let's look at just being at it as the CAP square model. That is, you compare with cognizance, you plan with perspective, and when it comes to action, you have your alternatives open. Like when I was doing a project, I fractured my hand. Did I stop doing it? No, I had a deadline. So what I did, I turned to speech and text recognition. A very simple alternative again, but when you're doing the action, you need to have alternatives. So when you just do it and you follow the CAP square model, you are able to be proactive, which is the title of my talk. That is better proactive than reactive. It's not a sin to be reactive, but if you just introspect too much, nothing is going to come out of it. So it's better you be proactive. And just to conclude, I will leave you with a thought here that it's a quote, and I want you to think about how this relates to my topic, that it is, in a world where everybody wants you to be somebody else, so you, day and night, you're fighting this constant battle to be yourself, and that is the most difficult battle that you can fight for and ever keep fighting. Thank you, and namaste.